What is up, YouTube? Uncommon Ramen here. Before I get into the video, let me remind you, if you like my content, please hit that like and subscribe button. And also, if you want to know when it's being posted, hit the bell icon. And finally, if you want to support me, hit me up on my Patreon at patreon.com/uncommonramen, capital U, capital R. I do all of this in my free time, so any amount of support can help me bring more of this content to you more often. All right, today we're going to take a look at another deck tech. The last time I did a 40k deck tech, it was Gearson, and it was actually a completely new deck because Gearson was the only part of the 40k that I had pulled out to create the deck. And I know that that came from the Tyrannid deck tech, but I will be doing a Tyrannid deck tech another time. It is kind of expensive to upgrade that guy the way I want it to be upgraded. So instead, we're going to take a look at Inquisitor Greyfax, another one of the 40k decks. This one, a lot of people wanted to go with Marneus, and I can kind of see why. Marneus is very good. I didn't want to do that. The original commander was Inquisitor Greyfax, and there was a lot of fun that you could do if you wanted to do like a swing-wide strategy using Greyfax, so I chose Greyfax. Greyfax is Esper colors, 1 a white, a blue, and a black, has vigilance, has unquestionable wisdom. Other creatures you control get +1/+0 and have vigilance, and has hunt for heresy. For 1 and tapping it, you can tap target creature an opponent controls and investigate, which is really interesting. So that is our commander. We're going to be doing a token swing wide strategy with this guy. So we're going to take a look at the creatures and show you what we got going here. All right. Starting with Adeline Resplendent Cathar. This guy is Vigilance, power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control, and when you attack, for each opponent, create a 1/1 white human creature token that is tapped and attacking that player, or a planeswalker they control. This is just a really cool way to get more tokens onto the table. Likely those tokens are going to die, especially if your opponents have blockers, but really, truthfully, this is a token deck, so she's going to still see a big power, just because you're going to be pumping out a lot of tokens just through all sorts of different means. Next up, we have Arco Flagellant. This guy has Squad 2, so the more times you pay that Squad 2 cost, the more copies of Arco Flagellant you get to the table. It's a 3/1 that can't block. It has Endurant. You can pay 3 life to give it Indestructible until end of turn. This guy can be a pain in the butt, especially in the very beginning of the game. It makes it very difficult to take this guy off the table, and what ends up happening is your opponents crash into it with something to kill it, usually a 1/1, but end up not getting to kill it anyway, and slowly but surely they have to start sending more and more useful resources into it before they finally can remove it. Next up, we have Assault Intercessor. This guy's 3/2 First Strike Menace. Has Chainsword. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life, so we get a little bit of an reverse Aristocrats thing. Just if your opponent's creatures die, they lose life. So we're going to punish them for blocking, or, sacking, or just in general having their creatures die. Be careful out there. Next up, we have a Bastion Protector. This guy gives commander creatures you control +2/+2 and indestructible. This guy is not new. This is actually a reprint card, I believe. But this is the newer version of it. Very good card. It's really helpful with Greyfax because Greyfax is kind of squishy by comparison to Marneus. And giving it indestructible forces your opponents to target the Bastion Protector before they target your commander. Next up, we have Belarious Call. This guy is a 2/4 Ultima Founding. You can tap it to tap 2 untapped artifacts you control to create a 2/2 white Astartes warrior creature token with vigilance. It also has Master of Machines. You can tap it and tap X untapped creatures you control. Look at the top X cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them, put it into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I like this because investigating creates clues, and clues are considered artifacts. So you can use clues to activate this top ability to start creating Astartes warriors. And while this isn't an artifact-heavy deck, sometimes it's not bad to search for an artifact, so this ability is relevant to some degree. Next up, we have Calidus Assassin. This guy is super good. This guy puts in a lot of work. So it has Flash. It's a 3/3. It does have a very high cost of 6, but it has Polymorphine. You may have Calidus Assassin, enter the battlefield tapped as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it has, when this creature enters the battlefield, destroy up to one other target creature with the same name as this creature. So you can target something that is big and beefy on your opponent's side and just assassinate it, and you get a copy of it in the form of the Calidus Assassin. So it's a kill spell and a copy spell all at the same time. There's really no downside aside from the fact it costs 6. Next up, we have Celestine, the Living Saint. This is 3/4 flying lifelink, healing tears. At the beginning of your end step, return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. This card can be a pain in the butt to deal with. It's not quite your Sun Titan because I guess it kind of is a Sun Titan. It's a flying Sun Titan because you're guaranteed to gain 3 life just by attacking with her, which means you can return something with a, CMC? Yeah, CMC of 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, which is exactly what Sun Titan does. But as the game goes on, there are tons of ways to gain extra life here, so you're going to start being able to target anything from your graveyard, and that's really important in this deck. We got Commissar Severina Rain, 2/2, leading from the front. Whenever Commissar Severina Rain attacks, each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. Summary execution, you can tap 2 and sacrifice another creature to gain 2 life and draw a card. So another example of gaining life right here for the Celestine. Also, the attack trigger here is just really incredible, especially if you're doing a swing wide strategy. You could probably do a lot of damage with this. It is going to become a target pretty quickly, so you're going to have to find ways to keep it protected, but all in all, very good card. We got Company Commander, command section. 2/4 with the command section. When Company Commander enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 white soldier creature tokens equal to the number of opponents you have. And then bring it down whenever Company Commander attacks. Creatures you control gain death touch until end of turn. This is really good with 1/1s and just tokens in general, because your opponents really do not want to lose value to 1/1s. So if your 1/1s have death touch, it makes it really difficult on them because it forces them to make really bad trades with their blocks. Next up, we have Cybernetica Datasmith. This guy is a 0/1 with protection from robots. Field reprogramming. For 1 blue and tapping it, target player draws a card. Another target player creates a 4/4 colorless robot artifact creature token with this creature can't block. I like it because it creates the little tokens. You can actually create those tokens for yourself because it does say another target player and just let somebody else draw cards. On the other end of that, though, you could give your opponent's robots, at least one of them, because Cybernetica Datasmith can block them without death. But it has a lot of very interesting uses in this deck. Next up, we have Epistolary Librarian. This guy is a 3/4 with Veil of Time. Whenever Epistolary Librarian attacks, you may cast a spell with mana value X or less from your hand without paying its mana cost, where X is the number of attacking creatures. This can get kind of nutso, because the number of attacking creatures is going to vary heavily during the course of play with this. So you could probably cast some of the heavier spells here without paying their mana cost, and that makes this guy a really big threat. Next up, we have Inquisitor Eisenhorn. This guy's a 2/3. You may reveal the first card you draw each turn. As you draw it, whenever you reveal an instant or sorcery card this way, you get to create a Cherubale, a legendary 4/4 black demon creature token with flying. Whenever Inquisitor Eisenhorn deals combat damage to a player, investigate that many times. So you're gonna create a number of clue tokens equal to the amount of damage that Eisenhorn does. So originally it's gonna be 2, but that could change. You never know. We got Junkwinder. A lot of what we just saw here, besides the Resplendent, was stuff that came in the deck. So we're going to start looking... Well, I mean, as we go through, you'll start seeing stuff that I upgraded out. So we have Junkwinder. This guy is 5 and 2 blue, 5/6. It has affinity for tokens. Whenever a token enters the battlefield under your control, tap target non-land permanent an opponent controls. It doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. This can actually end games, especially if this is a late game play. If this guy lives, it can be a pain in the butt to deal with. your opponents need creatures to block, and you need them to not be able to block, so this guy does that for you. So this guy can be very scary, not to mention he's a 5/6 body. Next up, we have Marneus Calgar, the guy who most people use as the commander for this deck. 3/5 with double strike, Master Tactician. Whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, you get to draw a card. And then Chapter Master, for 6, you can create 2 2/2 white Astartes warrior creature tokens with Vigilance, which is such a good ability. The 2/2 white Astartes with Vigilance is super good. We got Primaris Chaplain. Primaris Chaplain has Battle Cry, so whenever this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It also has Rosarius. Whenever Primaris Chaplain attacks, it gains indestructible until end of turn. It's a 3/3. The +1/+0 Anthem effect on top of the +1/+0 Anthem from Greyfax, you're giving +2/+0 to all of your attacking anything. So your tokens suddenly become 3/1s, which is really devastating. Next up, we have Primaris Eliminator. This guy's a 3/2. When Primaris Eliminator enters the battlefield, choose 1. Executioner round, destroy target creature. Or Hyperfang round, creatures target player controls get -2/-2 until end of turn. Very versatile kill spell. This can be a board wipe to small token-like decks like your own, but it can also be just a kill spell for a single creature on the table that's causing problems, as well as just being a 3/2 body. So the 5 mana cost is justifiable. We've got Sanguinary Priest. This guy is 2/4 with lifelink. Whenever another creature you control dies, Sanguinary Priest deals 1 damage to any target. I like this because it has lifelink, and the card specifically says that it deals the damage. So each damage that you're dealing with this, you're gaining the life for. And it's whenever another creature you control dies. We're playing a token strategy. That's going to happen quite often. So this can be a great way to aristocrat your opponents to death. It is to any target, so it doesn't necessarily even have to hit your opponents. It can hit their creatures as well. So you can play this very strategically. More importantly, this is a great way, again, to gain life for Celestine. Celestine. So you can draw or take cards from your graveyard with much greater CMCs. Next up, we have Sicarian Infiltrator. This guy's got Flash and Squad as well. Squad 2. It has Benediction of the Omnissiah. Is it like omnipotent? Anyway, Omnissiah. When Sicarian Infiltrator enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card. So this is a Squad 2. The more times you pay 2 after you play the casting cost for this, the more of those tokens you get when this is entering the battlefield. Which means that every time one of those tokens enters the battlefield, which is a copy of this creature, you're also drawing a card. It's a good way to bolster up your hand. It also creates more of those tokens. It also gets seen by a lot of token-related things, so this is a very cool card to have in here. Next up, we have Sister Hospitaller. This is a 3/2. It has Medicus Ministorum. Some of these names I'm just going to butcher out, right? Because I don't really know how they're pronounced. But it says, when Sister Hospitaller enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You gain life equal to its mana value. This is just outright really good. It's a 3/2 body for 6, but at the same time, you're just going to bring something straight to the battlefield. Not to your hand, straight to the battlefield. And it is any target from your graveyard, right? Target creature card from your graveyard. So there's no like restrictions to what kind of creature card gets returned. So if your Junk Winder's in there, boom, you got a 5/6 body to the table. Not to mention you gain life equal to its mana value. So with the Junk Winder, that's 7. And again, with Celestine, that's really good. Next up, we have Sister Repentia. This one's cool because it has Miracle. It's got Martyrdom. When Sister Repentia dies, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. It's a 5/1 with Miracle, 1 black, 1 white. So if you draw this as your first card, as your first draw for your turn, you can reveal it and pay its Miracle cost to put it in play, which is significantly different from its 5 mana value, 3 in a black and a white. So this card can be really good to play if it's in your deck. It's kind of bad if you end up drawing it, but it's still a very cool 5/1 body that allows you to gain 2 life and draw 2 cards if it dies. So either way, you're probably going to end up playing it one way or another. Next up, we have Sister of Silence. This guy is 3/3 with Flash. Psychic Abomination. When Sister of Silence enters the battlefield, counter target instant spell, sorcery spell, activated ability, or triggered ability. This is cool because we're not just focusing on instants or sorceries. We can actually counter activated and triggered abilities. Activated abilities, there are quite a few things that do that. Triggered abilities, there's much less. So this is cool because at least one turn, you don't have to worry about some obnoxious trigger. We got Space Marine Devastator. This guy's really cool. It's a 3/3 with Squad 2. It's got Grav Cannon. When Space Marine Devastator enters the battlefield, destroy up to one target artifact or enchantment. So every time you pay 2 for the squad when this guy is entering the battlefield, you get copies of this, and it just destroys another artifact or enchantment. And that is really important in Commander. There's not a lot that helps deal with enchantments, so being able to get rid of those sticky enchantments is a great thing. Not to mention, again, the tokens and blah, blah, blah. We got Space Marine Scout. This guy's a 2/1 with First Strike and Vigilance. He's got Concealed Position. When Space Marine Scout enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you may search your library for a Plains card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. I love the fact that it's 2/1. I love the fact that it's got First Strike. I love the fact that it's got Vigilance. And I love the fact that it can come in and fetch you a land. There's very little downside to this guy. Next up, we have Ultramarines Honor Guard. For 3 and a white, you have a 2/2 with Squad 2. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Just paying 2 extra on top of that, you get 2 of these guys hitting the table, which means they see each other and give each other +1/+1. The more of these that hit the table, the more anthems you have hit the table. I've seen this card get really crazy really quickly. And again, token strategies, this is perfect for it because we're just going to keep on buffing those little 1/1s, and suddenly those 1/1s are 3/3s or 4/4s or 5/5s. Next up, we have Vanguard Suppressor. This guy's 3 and a blue for 3/2. Squad 2 has flying and has suppressing fire. When Vanguard Suppressor deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. And it, again, Squad 2. So the more times we pay 2 as this is ETBing, the more copies of it we get. With the flying, it's really hard to block. And every time it deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card for each of those ones that are dealing combat damage. That's freaking incredible value. Next up, we have Vexilus Praetor. This guy is 3 and a white, Flash and Vigilance, 3/4. Aegis of the Emperor. Commanders you control have protection from everything. Much like the Bastion Protector here, which gives it indestructible and +2/+2, this guy has to be dealt with first before you can hit the commander once this guy hits the table. And this is a pain in the butt. This card giving protection from everything means that your opponent cannot block your 2/2 or your 3/3 commander, amongst many other things that it does. The Flash and Vigilance means that it can attack and still be a good blocker. Flash means you can play it at any point in time, so you can do it in response to your opponent playing a spell that would target your commander, which would make that spell fizzle. It's just a really fantastic card. Lastly, we have Zephyrum. This guy's 3 and a white for 3/3, Squad 2, Flying Vigilance, Miracle, 1 and a white. So first off, if you draw this as your first card you draw for your turn, you can Miracle this guy in for 1 and a white, which means you pay a heck of a lot less for it. It's got Squad 2, which means the more times you pay 2 as it's entering the battlefield, the more copies of it you get. And it's a Flying Vigilance 3/3. That's scary. That's a lot of value right there because it can block, it can attack, it's hard to block. Yeah, this is a really great card. And again, token strategy, what can I say? All right, next up, we're going to look at instants. Starting with Access Denied. Again, the... oh, wait, this is a different card. My bad. Don't listen to me on this one. This is a counterspell. It creates X 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature tokens with flying, where X is the spell's mana value. So for 3 and 2 blue, you counter something, and you get a whole bunch of Thopters in the process. Very cool card. And they shall know no fear. This guy is 1 and a white. Choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+0 and gain indestructible until end of turn. This is a good way to get a really good swing that would normally not be in your favor to kind of be in your favor. Next up, we have Deny the Witch, another counterspell. You can counter a spell, an activated ability, or a triggered ability. Its controller loses life equal to the number of creatures you control, which can be really devastating to them. again, just like the Commissar in the earlier part of the creatures, when we're attacking and we're dealing damage equal to the number of creatures we're attacking with, that can be quite devastating because we're trying to put a lot of creatures on the table and really just swing wide with it. Next up, we have Entrapment Maneuver. This is 3 and a white. Target player sacrifices an attacking creature. You create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens, where X is that creature's toughness. So you can get rid of something really, really big and then put a whole bunch of tokens on the table. Either way, this is a fantastic card because we're getting them to destroy a creature and we're getting some value out of it either one way or another. We got Flawless Maneuver. If you control your commander, you can cast this card without paying its mana cost. Creatures you control have indestructible until end of turn. This is a way to avoid board wipes just as much as the and they shall know no fear. It also is just a really good card in general. Next up, we have Grand Crescendo. This guy is instant speed, and that's probably the most important part about this card. It's X and 2 white. Create X 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. Creatures you control are indestructible or gain indestructible until end of turn. Because it's instant speed, we are avoiding board wipes with this. And then we're also going to create a whole bunch of 1/1 green white citizen creature tokens as well, which is exactly the strategy that we want to use for this deck anyway. And because you create the citizen tokens before the indestructible part, the citizens are indestructible as well. So this is a must-have in this deck. It's actually a must-have in any real token deck, to be honest. Next up, we have Ink Shield. This guy is a messed up card. For 5, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you this turn. For each 1 damage prevented this way, you get to create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. Held till the right point in time, this card is a game ender. Sometimes your opponents are going to wait till they think it is absolutely the most opportune time to smash you with the most amount of damage, and then this thing comes out and turns that damage into Inklings that are going to fly over them and hurt them instead. And I have seen this end games. This is just a very powerful token strategy card. Next up, we have Mortify. Destroy target creature or enchantment. Very versatile. Then we have Swords to Plowshares. It's obvious in here. We exile a creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. And then we have Utter End. Another instant speed exile target non-land permanent. The non-land permanent part is really important because we don't have to hit creatures with that. We can hit enchantments, artifacts, you name it. We can even hit lands if we wanted to. So this is a very powerful card. All right, next up is sorceries. There are actually very few sorceries in this deck. We have Collective Effort. This guy is 1 and 2 white. You can escalate it by tapping an untapped creature you control, which is not hard in this deck. Every time you escalate it, you can choose another mode, and I believe you can choose multiple modes multiple times, right? Pay this cost for each mode chosen beyond the first. I'll have to check into that. You might not be able to choose more than 3 modes, but if you are able to, that means you can choose the same mode multiple times. This allows you to either destroy target creature with power 4 or greater, destroy target enchantment, or put a +1/+1 counter on each creature target player controls. So the bottom one is obviously good for token decks. We also have a destroy target enchantment clause in there, which is really great. And then destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. Something that this deck has a weakness against is big beaters. So any way that we can mitigate that is an acceptable way. And so Collective Effort is super good in this deck. Next up, we have Deploy to the Front. This guy's 5 and 2 white. Create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. So just double down on the number of creatures you have. That's insane. Next up, we have Exterminatus. 5 and white and a black. Non-land permanents your opponents control lose indestructible until end of turn, and then destroy all non-land permanents. The beauty of this is that indestructible won't even save you at that point. And if you're in that kind of dire situation, this is the perfect card to do what needs to be done. This can get you through Eldrazi if necessary. We've got Hour of Reckoning. This isn't here for obvious reasons. You can pay... It's got Convoke, so you can tap creatures as if they were mana, and it destroys all non-token creatures. So, yeah, you're probably standing to lose a couple of creatures on your own, but all of your tokens survive this, whereas your opponents will suffer probably a lot worse than you when it comes to this board wipe. Got Launch the Fleet. This guy costs 1 white. It has Strive. The spell costs 1 more to cast for each target beyond the first until end of turn. Any number of target creatures each gain whenever this creature attacks. Create a 1/1 white soldier creature token that's tapped and attacking. I can't stress how much value this has with a deck where there's a ton of tokens attacking. Yes, you have to pay 1 extra on top of it to target more creatures, but that could be anywhere from 2 to 20. So it's a variable cost. Lastly, we have Martial Coup, another fantastic board wipe. For X and 2 white, you create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens, and if X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So it's a one-sided board wipe because you're going to fill up your base with a bunch of 1/1 white soldier creature tokens and then destroy everything else. And your opponents will have to, at that point, work to try and create a board so that they don't get wiped out by a huge token rush. All right, next up is artifacts. I don't think I added. Oh, I did. I only added 1 artifact here, but starting with the Arcane Signet, taps for Commander Identity. Commander Sphere, taps for any 1 color of your Commander Identity, and you can sacrifice to draw a card. Idol of Oblivion. You can tap this to draw a card, but you can only do that if you created a token this turn. And your commander creates tokens just by using its ability. So this is going to be seeing a lot of value in the card draw section of things. You can also tap 8 and tap it to sacrifice it to create a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature token. I mean, I can't deny that creature tokens are what this deck does, and a 10/10 would be fantastic in this deck. So next up, we have Inquisitorial Rosette. 2 for Inquisition agents. Whenever equipped creature attacks, create a 2/2 white Astartes warrior creature token with vigilance that's attacking. The then attacking creatures gain menace until end of turn. The menace part is so important because it just makes your creatures that much harder to block. Then we get a 2/2 Astartes at the same time that has vigilance, so it's going to attack, stay untapped, and be able to block next turn. It's so good. Equips for 3. We got Mind Stone. You can tap it for colorless. You can tap 1 and it, sacrifice it to draw a card. We got Skull Clamp. It's a token deck. You have to have Skull Clamp. Whenever the creature that is equipped with Skull Clamp dies, you get to draw 2 cards. That's pretty much instant death on a 1/1. So it's just like instant value. Next up, we have Soul Ring. You can tap it for 2. We got Talisman of Dominance. This taps for colorless, or you can tap it for blue or black, but have it deal 1 damage to you. Then we have Talisman of Hierarchy, taps for colorless, or you can tap it for white or black, as long as it deals 1 damage to you. And then you have Talisman of Progress, taps for colorless, or you can tap it for white or blue, and have Talisman of Progress deal damage to you. Then we have Golden Throne. This guy is 4. It has Arcane Life Support. If you would lose the game, instead exile the Golden Throne, and your life total becomes 1. So you get 1 extra chance if you would die to not die. And then 1,000 souls die every day. You can tap it to sacrifice a creature to add 3 mana of any combination of colors. So good in the token deck because we could just sacrifice one of our tokens and all of a sudden we have some extra mana. Super good. And then lastly, right? Yeah. We have Thunderhawk Gunship. This guy is flying. When Thunderhawk Gunship enters the battlefield, create 2/2 white Astartes warrior creature tokens with vigilance. Whenever Thunderhawk Gunship attacks, attacking creatures you control gain flying until end of turn, and it crews for 2. So you only have to use 1 Astartes that it creates to crew it, and on attack, all of your creatures gain flying. That is horribly deadly, and it will be a bane in your opponent's side. Right, next is enchantments. There are actually quite a few added enchantments in here, starting with Anointed Procession. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. This is really good with squad abilities. This is really good with both the investigate abilities in here. This is really good with all of the abilities that create Astartes. In general, this is great for tokens because we're just going to look at doubling up on the tokens. Next up, we have Birth of the Imperium. This is Saga. For Chapter 1, create a 2/2 white Astartes warrior creature token with vigilance for each opponent you have, so that's up to 3. For Chapter 2, each opponent sacrifice a creature. Usually they're going to sacrifice something not super great, but sometimes it hits when people only have one creature, so super good. And then for Chapter 3, draw 2 cards for each opponent who controls fewer creatures than you. That should be all the opponents. That's not necessarily always going to be the case, but most of the time that should be all of your opponents. Next up, we have Court of Grace. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. If you don't know what the Monarch is, at the end of if you are the Monarch at the end of your turn, you get to draw a card. At the beginning of your upkeep, you get to create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. But if you're the Monarch, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying instead. So this is super good if you can continue to hold on to the Monarch. And in a token deck, that's not necessarily super hard to do. You might have to deal with flying in order to keep the Monarch, but that might be the biggest challenge. But just in general, Monarch gives a lot of value, whether or not you have it during your upkeep or not. As long as you had it during your end phase, it gives a lot of value. Next up, we have Defenders of Humanity. For X2 and a white, when Defenders of Humanity enters the battlefield, create X/2/2 white Astartes warrior creature tokens with vigilance. And then for X2 and a white, exile Defenders of Humanity to create X/2/2 white Astartes warrior creature tokens with vigilance. And you can only activate that ability if you control no creatures and only during your turn. So again, we take board wipes in stride with this deck. Obviously, if somebody's playing board wipe tribal, that's going to suck for you. But for the most part, if people are just playing a typical amount of board wipes, we take board wipes in stride with this deck. Next up, we have Divine Visitation. Probably one of the most powerful cards in this deck because any token that enters the battlefield stops being whatever it was when it ETB'd and becomes a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. And that is so, so important. When you think about Grand Crescendo, and it's coming out with a whole bunch of 1/1 white and green citizen creature tokens, suddenly those white and green citizen creature tokens are not 1/1 white green citizen tokens. They are now 4/4 flying vigilance angel creature tokens. This sees all of the squads, and instead of creating a bunch of 3/2s or 2/2s or 1/4s or whatever it is, they become 4/4s with flying. And again, flying is very difficult to deal with. So this is a super good card in this deck. Next up, we have Dreadhorde Invasion. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose a life and amass 1. And basically, amassing just means you're going to put a +1/+1 counter on a zombie army you control, or if you don't have a zombie army, you're going to create a 0/0 black zombie army creature token and put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever a zombie token you control with power 6 or greater attacks, it gains lifelink until end turn, so another way to gain some life. Next up, we have Rabble Rousing. Hideaway 5. Which basically means you can look at the top 5 cards of your library, choose one of them, put it under or exile it, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures, create that many 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. Then, if you control 10 or more creatures, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. This is too good not to be in here, because we're not just seeing value with the Hideaway. We're going to see value even after the Hideaway has been completed, because every time your creatures attack, you get 1/1 citizens that are also attacking. And it's just really good. And again, with Divine Visitation, those aren't 1/1 citizens anymore. They're 4/4 angels. And lastly, we have Reconnaissance Mission, because Reconnaissance Mission is just good. It's Coastal Piracy, but with cycling. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. There's a ton of value in that. We're playing a 99 card deck, singleton deck. We want to be able to draw cards as often as possible. All right, finally, we're looking at the only Planeswalker that I have in here. It's Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord. As long as it is your turn, creatures and Planeswalkers you control have lifelink. That is super powerful. You have a ton of creatures. They could be anywhere from 4/4 angels to 1/1 citizens. All of them having lifelink makes this a pain in the butt, because your opponents then suddenly have to find a way to either get rid of the Sorin or deal a whole lot of damage to you very, very quickly. For +2, Sorin Vengeful Bloodlord deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker, and for -X, return target creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. The creature is a vampire in addition to its other types. So it's got a really good recursion. It's got a really fantastic static ability, and its +2 is kind of funny. It's just a 1 life drain to a creature. It could kill something, it might not. It just might be just someone loses a life and you gain a life. Who knows? Okay, next up we're going to look at non-basic lands. Last part of this interesting part. So the lands is where this deck definitely needed some of the most help. Obviously enchantments was also a place where this deck needed the most help. We're going to start here with the Arcane Sanctum. It taps for Esper colors. It enters the battlefield tapped. We got Ash Barrens, taps for 1 colorless, or it has basic land cycling. So, like, if you need a specific color and you're just not drawing it, this kind of gets you unstuck from that. Next up, we have Choked Estuary. It's a check land for blue-black. Is it check land? Enters the battlefield. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's a reveal land for blue-black. We got Clearwater Pathway. This is the blue-black MDFC. Command Tower, taps for your color identity. Darkwater Catacombs. This is something that I was considering switching out. It's a filter for blue-black. I haven't decided whether I switch this guy out or not. We got Evolving Wilds. You can fetch for a basic land. Exotic Orchard, taps for whatever your opponent's lands tap for. Got Fabled Passage, fetches for a basic land. And it'll enter untapped as long as you have, I think, 4 or more? Yeah, if you control 4 or more lands after you put it in play, it untaps. Godless Shrine, it's a white-black shock land. Hallowed Fountain, white-blue shock land. Important part here is that they both have basic land typings. We've got Hengegate, the blue-white MDFC. We've got Path of Ancestry here. Enters the battlefield tapped. You can add 1 mana of any color your commander's color identity. And when you cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, you get to scry 1. It's a human and an Inquisitor. It'll see Inquisitors. I don't think there's that many in there, but it definitely sees a lot of humans in there, so that's cool. I got Port Town, blue-white reveal land. Got Prairie Stream. Again, this has basic land typings. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. So it's a check land, but very good with the basic land typings. Got Rafine's Tower, another land that taps for the Esper colors. Has cycling for 3, but it also has the basic land typings, so that's very important. Got Skycloud Expanse. This is another filter land for blue-white. Got Sunken Hollow, another check land for blue-black that also has land typings. Terramorphic Expanse, which is the exact same thing as the Evolving Wilds. And then finally, we got Watery Graves. I think that's finally. Yeah. Finally, we have Watery Graves, the shock land for blue-black. Also has land typings. So land typings, again, very important, especially as Magic ages. That's really important. And then finally, we're going to take a look at the basic lands. There are some that were taken out of here, obviously to make room for some of the more useful lands, as well as maybe other cards. We have 1, 2, 3 islands. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plains. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 swamps. So that is the Inquisitor Greyfax deck. Get that card back on there. This was just an upgrade to the Precon. The Precon didn't necessarily need a lot of help, but there was a lot of cards in there, especially if you're running the Greyfax side of things, that didn't make sense. Marneus is obviously a very good choice to run in here. I would probably have run a little bit different if I ran Marneus. I don't know how different, but maybe an Academy manufacturer, I'm not sure. But this deck, like I said, out of the box, didn't need a huge amount of help. It did pretty good. I chose Inquisitor Greyfax because pretty much everybody in the world chooses Marneus over Greyfax, and I think Greyfax has a cool anthem ability because it's not just +1/+0, it also gives vigilance. And it's really important when it comes down to being able to block. It makes her a pretty big target. Her own ability is actually really good because you can tap down probably one of the most powerful creatures on your opponent's side, and you get to investigate. So that's very cool. Investigating, does that actually... I wonder if that works with... Divine Visitation. Although I'm pretty sure Divine Visitation only sees creature tokens enter the battlefield. But it would be interesting to have a clue enter as a 4/4 angel instead. I don't know if that works. But either way, a lot of cool stuff in here. The Junkwinder is a necessity if you're going to run this as a token deck. Adeline, Resplendent Cathar is super good because it gets power equal to the number of creatures you control, which can get really out of hand really quickly. All in all, very interesting upgrades. And it didn't stray too far from the 40k thing. We still have a good chunk of the 40k cards in here. I don't remember exactly how many I upgraded, but anyway, that is Inquisitor Greyfax. If you have any comments or questions, leave those down below. Let's keep it positive. I'll remove negative comments. And until next time, guys. Peace.